What's going on, family? Franchise J. Claxton and this lovely lady, Dr. Cass Vaughn. I was going to call you by your real name. I mean, that's your name. I was going to call you by your real name.
Okay, James.
Okay. I'm not.
Hey, how about my Celtics?
I'm still not going to give you up.
How about my Celtics?
Y'all done on Thursday.
We're not, but okay.
Y'all done on Thursday.
Yeah, you also told me. Remember on Sunday you told me we were gonna be done on Tuesday.
Y'all should have been swept. Y'all not winning 4 games in a row.
Okay, I'm so glad that you're out of ICU.
You're not gonna win 4 games.
I'm glad that you're out of ICU, which is the reason why you couldn't be in the conversation with Brooklyn. However, Brooklyn had a lot to say about the Celtics too. You Lakers.
You see, we got a heavy future. We got a heavy future. Roy Hachimura, Austin Reeves,
But how about now?
Oh, we good. We set up. We set up for next year.
Okay.
We set up for next year. So we good. It was a good season compared to we were definitely out of the playoffs until and after the trade deadline, one of the best teams in the league.
But you always tell me, who cares about number 2? So what else is happening in the news?
What else? Oh, Tina Turner passed.
My gosh, I know. And a legend. However, she had been dealing with illness.
Right.
And I'd actually said to someone that her passing wasn't shocking to me because I'm not sure if you are aware, but 6 months ago, her son passed. And I felt like at that moment, she may have given up, legend, definitely her story is one that everybody, if you have not seen the Tina Turner story, please watch it.
Well, what's funny, right? Because I was listening to some information this morning, and her husband gave her a kidney, right? No.
Oh, her. Oh, I was gonna say.
Her current husband. No, we're not worrying about that, right? But her current husband gave her a kidney, and what was funny because it's just not even a segue, but just speaking in the last few weeks or last month or so, with Ebony K. Williams talking about with Ayala Van Zandt that she would not, only way she would date a bus driver is if he owned the bus. Tina Turner's husband was the actual driver that was driving her somewhere, and then it was like kind of love at first sight, and they end up being together ever since. So she was with the driver.
Oh, sort of like us. I was the assistant.
You never was the assistant, so stop, please. Like that. That wasn't it. So
and scrolling through, actually, I feel like someone who I'm not a big fan of, but you are, actually stepped up to the plate on this one. The MV Rick Ross debacle, right? And Fat Joe actually stepped up and said, look, I don't like it. Someone needs to talk about it, and this needs to end, because unfortunately, it is brewing and growing into something that is just I'm with Fat Joe. I don't like it, and I hate watching it.
So I'm gonna be honest, right? The car show thing, I was okay with, right? Y'all talking trash about car shows. Y'all got a relationship. I'm not gonna say y'all best friends, but y'all got a relationship. Y'all talking about car shows.
Family into it.
Yeah, when you start talking about the sons and his girl, technically, which he's married, I thought that was out of pocket. And we gentlemen, and we move a certain way, and there's certain codes and guidelines that we don't cross. And I felt like that was that was a boundary, and that was a line that was crossed, and it shouldn't have been.
Absolutely.
It definitely shouldn't have been. It definitely hadn't. We're gonna talk about car shows. Talk about car shows. Let's not talk about kids or wives or any of that. That he was out of pocket for that. I ain't even gonna lie. And I'm a Ross fan, but he was out of pocket for that. You know what I mean? And I've interviewed Envy, but he's definitely going to the family was out of pocket.
I absolutely agree.
Was out of pocket. What? You got this look on your face like you want to say something about your weak Celtics.
I don't at all. I was just waiting for you to go to the next to intro Brooklyn. Hey. We're not done. Coming up for today's show, we have Brooklyn McLinn from Peacock's Bel-Air. This guy, I had told him actually when we spoke, I was like, I'll be honest with you, I didn't like your character until the end.
Well, they ain't have nothing to do with him.
Well, I'm saying my only interaction on knowing who he was had to do with that. Right. But then when you hear his story about how this man had 2 massive heart attacks, he ended up having a heart transplant, and we're as though he could be, I'm Brooklyn, I'm from Peacock, I played Doc, I played basketball across country, and I'm this person. He is so humble. He is his foundation is all about giving back, and interesting enough, which I can't wait for you to see this interview. Mm-hmm. He, like you, works out, mm-hmm. but unfortunately sometimes men don't pay attention to the signs. Physically fit, does not drink, has never drunk, because he was an athlete, mm-hmm. has never smoked, mm-hmm. doesn't do anything bad, mm-hmm. but did not realize that that he was having a heart attack.
Okay.
And actually flatlined, and guess where, of all places, he had his first heart attack?
Where?
Playing ball in the gym.
Wow. So we got all that to talk about. We ain't gonna let you into too much. Got all that to talk about.
Yeah, all that much more coming up next on After the Show. Mm-hmm. Welcome back to After the Show. We are here today with Brooklyn, and it's incredible because I said to him off camera, he was the one character that I was like, oh my God, why is he here? Like, I didn't make it make sense, people, and everybody knows. After the show, we are a fan of Bel-Air. And then I read your story and I watched your story, and I got to learn a lot more about you. So before we talk about your character as Doc on Bel-Air, I just want to talk a little bit about you and things that you've gone through, from your open heart surgery, from your foundation, from dealing with mental health, from being a single dad, and just all of the processes and everything that you've gone through thus far. Welcome to the show, Brooklyn.
Thank you. I've had a very interesting, I would say, last 6-7 years. I had playing basketball, which we were talking about earlier, with the Lakers and the Celtics, and boo to you.
Not boo to me.
But I experienced, and I say experience because some people would say they suffered a heart attack. I had an experience. Like, I experienced a heart attack playing basketball, and not really knowing what was happening at the time. So as a man, you feel a little discomfort. We just kind of kept playing, and I just played through it as the pain started to build. And I left that day to go run errands from the gym, still like, man, something's not right, and ultimately my left arm started going numb. And I was like, oh snap, like, I know that sign. So I drove myself to the hospital, and they basically were like, you're having a massive heart attack right now. So This is 2016, right? So I'm like, playing basketball every day, running all day. Like, I'm like, and I didn't think like, why me? I was thinking, why now?
Okay.
Because my dad had died from a heart attack. My grandmother died from a heart attack. So it wasn't like a shock, you know what I mean? But it was kind of like, why now? Like, I feel great, you know what I mean? And I had just booked Tyler Perry's TV show, The Have and Have-Nots.
Okay.
So I had just started working in Atlanta the week that I had this heart attack.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I had to leave the show. I couldn't come back to the show. I shot like 5 episodes and I couldn't go back. So I was really like, why is this happening now? Like, So the very first doctor was like, you need a heart transplant. And I was like, come on, bro. I was just hooping this morning. Like, I'll be all right. Cut to, I wasn't improving, right? I got better, but it was more so my body compensating for a failing heart. And in 2017, I found a doctor who said he could perform open heart surgery to help correct the issue, which was my heart was enlarged and my valves weren't functioning properly. They were leaking. So we did the surgery, September 2017. I felt better. Maybe like 6 weeks later, I started feeling like really fatigued again.
Okay.
And I go back to the cardiologist. Cardiologist like, yeah, your valves are leaking again. You have to have the same open heart surgery again. And I was like, okay. And he was like, we can't really explain why it failed, but you got to do it again. So in January 2018, which was basically like a couple of months after I did the first one, I had to do it again. So getting your chest cracked open again, working on your heart again. Now, the mental health aspect of it comes in because I had a buddy named Sam Sarpong.
Okay.
He was an actor, rapper, model, like, you know, I knew him since we were kids. He committed suicide in like 2015.
Okay.
And I couldn't understand, I couldn't understand why somebody would do that. So after being told that I needed a second open heart surgery, I really wrestled with my life at that point. I started to ask, why me? Because I'm like, wait a minute. You know, I was losing weight. I couldn't work. I couldn't, you know, didn't want to see my friends. Like, I looked really bad.
Gotcha.
And so leading up to that second surgery, I started to think, man, I'd rather be dead than live my life like this.
Wow.
Because it looked nothing like it did a year before. 2 years before, right? So I'm like, I can't sleep. I can't hold anything down. I'm not working. I'm not being like what kind of life is this? And literally in that moment, I was like, oh, that's why people probably commit suicide, because whatever they're dealing with, they feel like they'd be better off if they were dead.
Gotcha.
And I was like, oh, I get it. Like, okay, I'm not going to do that, but I understand it now.
Gotcha.
And so I go through with the second surgery, and my heart didn't respond the same way it did after the first one. So I got better, but it wasn't what they anticipated. So they started on me about the heart transplant again. I was like, yeah, nah. I was like, let me just see if I can improve on my own. So I was able to get strong enough to go back to work. I ended up booking a Marvel TV series called Cloak and Dagger that shot in New Orleans. And so I managed to get through that. And then cut to, 2020 pandemic, kind of the world shuts down. So I'm just kind of just living my life, taking care of myself. And I experienced a second heart attack. And in that one, it didn't feel like the first one, but I just started sweating profusely out of nowhere. It was almost like somebody dumped a bucket of water on me.
Were you working out or just?
No, I was casually talking as if we are right now.
Okay.
And I remember pausing to think, am I tired? Like, am I, like, what, like, you know what I mean? But I would keep talking, and I'm like, man, like, am I hot? Like, I was just having these different thoughts, and then I just started sweating.
Okay.
And my mother, who was with me, called 911.
Wow.
So literally, as she's calling 911, you know that feeling of really, really tired, and your head gets heavy and your head starts jerking. Like, so that's what started to happen. And I was like, man, like, I'm so tired. And my mom was like, no, you got to keep your head up. And I was like, nah, Mom, I just want to go to sleep.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, if this is death, I'm okay with it because it didn't hurt. I was just sweating and I just felt tired. Like, I could just go to sleep and be done with these heart surgeries, be done with my heart. Like, I'm good, right? So the paramedic gets there, and They propped me up. They put me on the gurney. The next thing I remember is it felt like we hit a speed bump, right? So speed bump, you know, and they're looking at me and I'm kind of like, man, just can't catch a break with my heart, right? So they're looking at me like, are you okay? And I said, yeah, my heart's been troubling me for about 4 or 5 years now, right? He goes, oh, okay. We get into the ICU. The paramedic comes in the room. He's like, are you sure you're okay? I said, yeah. He goes, because you flatlined on the way to the hospital.
Are you serious?
We had to paddle you to bring you back. So what I thought was a speed bump
was you being
shot in my chest. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, oh, I died for real. Like, okay. And he goes, hey man, take care of yourself. I was like, all right. So I'm literally sitting in the hospital because it's a pandemic and I had no visitors. I'm just by myself. I'm just
so they didn't let your mom go or nothing. Okay.
Nah. So I'm literally just pondering like, wow, I really just tapped out. Like, and I'm still here. But why am I still here? And I was just kind of like, all right, God, like, I don't even consider this my life now. Like, I Brooklyn ran out of strength. So I'm still here based on something else. So then the doctor was like, well, you need a pacemaker before I can let you go home. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right. So I go get the pacemaker. And the doctor was like, well, you should probably get a heart transplant. And I'm like, ah. And he goes, look, I know it's a big thing, but let's just run the test, see if you're, you qualify or whatever, the situation was. There's a heart transplant protocol. And you're going to be in the hospital for 10 days recovering from the pacemaker surgery. So let's just do it, get it out the way. I said, all right, cool. Day 10 rolls around, I do all the tests. I was like, I'm ready to go home. They was like, nah, you should stay for a heart transplant. And I was like, nah, man, come on, like, don't pull the bait and switch on me. Like, so they let me go home. The surgeon who performed the other 2 open heart surgeries, he calls. He said, hey, man, it's time.
Okay.
You done got all out of your heart as you're going to get. Like, you need a new one. And I'm
what I find incredible is something that you said about your heart transplant. I heard in a previous interview you saying that one of your thoughts was, in order for you to get a heart transplant, someone must pass away in order for you to live.
Yeah.
And I just thought that for you to have those thoughts in that moment, how courageous that is, and how selfless that is, because you're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about the fact like, oh my goodness, I have to take something from someone else so that I can survive.
Yeah. No, that was the primary hesitation of me not wanting to do it. Was I didn't want anybody else to have to die so I could live. Like, I did my best. I fought the good fight. I had these surgeries, experiencing these heart attacks. My father died from a heart attack. He would never have surgery. He wouldn't stop smoking and drinking and exercise, So I did everything. And I'm like, no, I did best I could do. So I'd rather die myself than have somebody else have to transition for me to keep going. And so that was a struggle, you know what I mean? And so I'm in the hospital. I waited 3 months before I got the news that there was a match.
Okay.
And in this heart transplant surgery, I experienced a stroke. So I woke up 2 days later after the transplant surgery, can't move the left side of my body, and I'm left-handed, right? So I'm like, oh my goodness. And they're like, yeah, your kidneys, they're not responding. You might need dialysis. I was like, I knew I should have died, right? Because I'm like, I've traded one problem for several others, you know what I mean?
Right.
So they're like, oh no, just relax. And I was like, no. I was like, so they just kind of like, no, your heart just needs time to like connect with your body. Like everything can turn around. You just gotta be patient. So I literally stayed for 2 more months to rehab, where most patients was going home in 10 days. So I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to write again. I had to do speech therapy. Like I was on dialysis in the hospital, like just hoping that my body would correct itself. Wow. And so when I went home, I could walk with a cane uncomfortably.
Okay.
But I didn't need dialysis. My kidneys started to improve. I started gaining some function, on my left side.
Okay.
And I would say maybe like around June, after having been home for a couple of months, I noticed that my breathing was better.
Okay.
Right. So I was like, oh, that's different. Okay. I was like, okay, maybe this isn't such a bad thing after all, right?
Okay.
And it was almost like muscle memory kicked in, because I started walking and I started trying to do a push-up and I started trying to do certain things, and my body started to respond pretty quick.
Okay. Do you think the fact that you were physically fit?
Yes, yeah. Definitely. So I would say maybe by August, September of 2021, I got the transplant in January. By August, I looked like nothing had ever happened. Like, that's how fast it kind of turned around.
Okay.
And so at that point, I'm just like, man, like, I want to meet the family. Like, if I can, like, I just want to say thank you. Like, I want them to know that this blessing, like, I'm gonna put it to maximum use. Like, and there's a process that you have to go through to try to connect with the donor family, because a lot of times they don't want to be found,
Right.
And so I went through the process, but I haven't heard anything back yet. So I'm just praying and hoping one day that
you'll be able to connect.
Yeah.
Well, one thing for sure, two things for certain. You are really doing incredible things with your new heart.
Yeah.
I like the fact that even though you have this enormous platform, right? And you could just be like, I'm on Bel-Air, I'm on Peacock, I've done Tyler Perry, I've done Marvel. You could say all of that. But instead of you being that person, you're the person of how can we help each other?
Yeah.
Which brings me to your foundation, that when I read everything about it, I'm like, this is incredible, that where you could be here, you're like, okay, let's give back. It reminds me of something that, and I shared off camera with you, that my dad was a pastor. And my dad, my dad was a nationally known pastor, right? And a civil rights leader. But what he would always tell us growing up is that it was better to be a servant than a celebrity. Because God places us here to be servants of people, not celebrities.
Yes.
And I think that's why I latched onto your story so much, because everything that I see is you could be this celebrity and I'm here and I'm eating with that person and I'm interviewing Morris Chestnut and my friend is Dwayne and this, that, and the third. But instead, I've played basketball overseas, but you're like, no, I want to give back. So let's talk about your foundation.
Yeah, it's called What the Heart Wants. And it's just kind of a play on words about transplant. And it's really just about trying to, one, for men, it's okay to say, like, I need help. I don't know everything. This pain that I feel, let me go get it checked out, because we are notorious for not going to the hospital. And then in our community, that's underserved, like, there's a lot of preventable diseases that we suffer from because we just lack the information. If it's diet, if it's exercise, it's small stuff that if we just had the proper information, we can make significant changes in the health of our youth, the health of our community, because we're just, we don't exercise a whole lot, we don't eat well, and I know a lot of that is due to economics, you know what I mean? But even still, it's like passing up the $4, Happy Meal or $5 salad, you know what I mean? It's just having better choices. And I'll say to this is that for me, I get it. Like, my dad died when he was 49, right? That seems so far away from me. when I was 18, 19, right? I never thought I would see 49.
Wow.
Because I'm thinking, well, hey, that was his plight. You know, everybody's saying I'm gonna have heart problems. Let me just live for today. You know, and so I never really thought about the idea of having kids. I thought about the idea of being in a relationship, but I was like, I don't want to die on nobody. So why would I knew how it felt from when my dad died on me, you know what I mean? As a teenager, feeling lost and not having the proper guidance to learn how to be a self-sufficient man, right? But when I got the transplant, right before I turned 49.
Okay.
And so I started feeling better right around my 50th birthday.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, I've lived longer than my father.
Wow.
And I feel great.
Wow.
And now I'm going, I got to start thinking about the next 50 years because clearly I'm going to be here. You know what I mean? So so the foundation is a part of wanting to leave. Like legacy is so important to me now. Like people have to know that I was here and that I wasn't just here on some frivolous, you know, oh, he overcame this. He overcame that. And then he went back to be of service to his community in any way possible. So if it was me taking my grandnephew and gaining guardianship of him to make sure that he has a good start in life, because our boys end up lost and end up in the system and end up in jail and I'm just like, not him, you know what I mean? So to be a single person trying to do that, it's a lot. I mean, obviously I get some help when I can, but literally every day, if it's not for work, it's me and him all day, every day. I take him with me to my meetings. I take him to, you know, production stuff, like wherever I can take him, he goes. And people understand, you know, I get commended for it. I'm not that I'm looking for praise for it, but I'm just like, it's that important to me that he gets a fresh start, like a good start at life. And it kind of parallels my character on Bel-Air because Doc took guardianship of his niece.
Yes.
So it was real airy kind of, you know, on the set. It was like, yo, like you took your nephew, you took your niece on the show. You know, it was a lot of like synchronicities on there that everybody's kind of like, yo, you clearly supposed to be here.
And I was going to ask you that. I was going to ask you how true to character is Doc with Brooklyn?
I would say pretty close because having a basketball background, when I got the audition for Bel-Air, you know, you get the sides, I'm reading the sides, I don't have a script, I'm just kind of like, oh, okay. And the way it read was like, this dude clearly was up to something.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I said, you know what, but I don't have to play that. He just, whatever his reasons are for doing whatever, they're justified to him. So I was like, I just have to play it regular, right? And I started reading the sides and I was like, wait a minute, I've said stuff like this. Like I've coached kids in basketball and I'm like, okay, I was like, this kind of feels like this might be my part, right? So I put myself on tape, I submit it, I take CJ, the baby, and we go to the Grove to walk around, just kind of, you know, you do your work and you let it go, right?
Right.
And I'm sharing with my friend and his wife about this audition. And I'm like, yeah, I feel really good about it. And I was like, it'd be so cool because shooting in LA, I won't have to travel and I can keep an eye on the baby. And as I'm saying this, Jabari, who plays Will, walks past me at the Grove.
Wow.
Okay. So I look and I'm like, that's the kid that plays Will right there, right? So my friend goes, you should say something to him. I was like, nah, I'm gonna wait until I get the job. And then when I meet him, I'm gonna tell him. Cut to, I get the job. I show up on the first day and they're telling me about the character and how you took your niece in. And Tammy Mack, who's a radio personality, she was on the episode. And so I just got through telling her about my nephew. So she looks at me and she goes, that's crazy. And I was like, yeah, I was just telling you how I took my nephew.
Right.
And then Jabari, I said, Jabari, you know what, man? The day that I auditioned for this, you walked right past me at the Grove. And he goes, yeah, I was there. I live right across the street. I was like, yo, everybody's like, yo, this is real crazy. Like, clearly you're supposed to be here. So Yeah, I would say I'm very similar to Doc as far as his love for basketball, his love for kids. The idea of, basically playing Robin Hood,
Right.
and by any means necessary, which is one of my favorite quotes from Malcolm X, so.
I will tell you, I spent a majority of part of the season not really liking your character. However, what actually made me fall in love with your character was the episode when you and Phil and Jeffrey were in the room together, and you say, the world spends time telling our boys, and I'm paraphrasing it. Telling our boys how to change themselves to be great, when I think greatness should come from what they've gone through. And at that moment, I was like, oh, wait, hold up. Okay, wait a minute. This is making a lot of sense. I like him.
Yeah.
And just listening to our conversation that we've had today and hearing other conversations that you have had in my research, all of this just seems like this is who Brooklyn is. Brooklyn didn't embody Doc. Doc embodied who Brooklyn's substance is.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that 100%. I definitely tried to humanize the character as much as possible. So I didn't want to, like I said, I wanted people to be like, is he good or is he not? Where it was so obvious, like, oh, he's clearly. It's like, yo, he's up to something, but what is it?
Right.
Like, that seems a little shady, but is it?
I know.
Seems a little, but is it? Like, you know what I mean? So that was my aim, and it played well, so once you kind of figure out at the end that it was like, oh, that's what was going on.
I'm telling you.
Because that is what happens. Like, AAU basketball and the sneaker companies and these college, they're all taking advantage of these kids.
Trust me, I know.
So without the NIL deals and stuff for the kids to make money outside of, just playing basketball on the scholarship, it's like, yo, these sneaker companies are making billions of dollars. And it's like, yo, if I can get some of that and pay some of these kids under the table illegally, but is taking care of hospitalization, or they need a new pair of shoes, or they need some food, or their father needs a new car, or whatever the case may be. Like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And is it illegal? Yeah, but so what?
But so what? Everybody else is. So we should make sure that the kids that are putting their bodies on the line, it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Brooklyn, I've had an incredible conversation with you today. Thank you so much for being on After the Show. Here's your moment, as my co-host would say. Here's your time for your shameless plug. How can people follow you?
They can follow me. I'm primarily on Instagram, Brooklyn McLinn. But I have a Facebook. Everything is just Brooklyn McLinn. Twitter, TikTok. But yeah, Brooklyn McLinn. I don't really have like any gimmicky kind of ID tag. It's my name.
Yeah, we can't forget your conversations with Brooklyn on YouTube. I need people to subscribe because those.
Okay, yeah, I'm with that.
Those conversations. I'm telling you, like really doing heavy research. I was like, oh, okay, wait a minute, I need to watch this. As a matter of fact, when we finish, after I finish my day, I have to go back and finish watching the episode I was watching. So
yeah, I was doing that maybe like I had a show called The Brooklyn Report on YouTube.
Okay.
And so this was probably like 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I had like what everybody's kind of doing now. I was like, I thought I wanted to be like, and not that I don't, but like the male version of Oprah. Like, gotcha. I was like, I'm a younger Montel Williams. You know what I mean? Gotcha. So I was doing these interviews, but then I started having heart problems. So I had to put it down.
Shout out to Montel from Baltimore.
10 years later, everybody got it. And I'm like, hey, more power to everybody. There's room for everybody. But it's just kind of fascinating to me. I was on that thing like 10 years ago.
Yeah, you were. And they're really good. I'm on the episode now with you and Morris Chestnut.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah. And literally, I had to stop in the middle. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I have to jump on so I can actually talk to Brooklyn. So when I finish my day, I have a few other things that I need to do, and then I'm gonna hop on. Actually, we're doing a basketball tournament here, and so I have to go for the registration.
Okay.
I'm still pretty active with that. And so with that said, as soon as I finish all of that, I'm gonna come back and watch my YouTube of Conversations with Mclinn. Yeah.
I appreciate you. I had a good time with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being on After the Show. Love Business on Lock.
Yep. Go ahead.
Love Business on Lock today is brought to you from the thoughts of, at what point do we stop and we move forward? That's a question.
I don't know. I mean, that was super broad, so I don't what you mean super broad?
So I guess for me, what I'm speaking about is, at what point do we stop with the same behavior and we move forward?
All right, so no, go, because I feel like you got something, so go ahead.
Well, not necessarily, but more so of, how many times do you apologize for the same behavior before you fix or change it?
No, I get it. I get it. It makes sense. So go ahead. I want you to elaborate.
Well, no, that's my question. It's a question because, we speak about you don't know what you don't know. And if I don't tell you what hurts me or what I don't like, then you're unaware, right? But at the point that I tell you and the behavior becomes constant or the same, at what point do we stop?
No, I get it. And we do have to listen, and we do have to pay attention, and we do have to, have them conversations and take heed. And, I know sometimes we may not get it, but, like you said, we don't know what we don't know. So at the point where you have a conversation, it is that person's responsibility to do what they need to do. So I get it.
That's all I have to love business.
All right, Love Business on Lock. What's going on, man? Franchise J. Claxton here with your food for thought, man. Listen, just have them conversations. It's kind of the piggyback on the Love Business on Lock. Just have them conversations. We were actually in a meeting, and we had a meeting, and there were some conversations that probably needed to be had that weren't had, and the conversation should have had it happen a year ago. And because the conversation didn't happen a year ago, there were some emotions and some feelings that were festering and harboring, and nobody could fix it because there was not a hard conversation ever had to be able to address and attack whatever the problem was. Because a lot of times people focus on the problem instead of focusing on the solution. We need to be solution-based. That's what we need to do. We don't need to focus on the problem because the problem already happened at this point. There's nothing that we can actually do about the problem if it already happened. Whatever it happened, we got to be solution-based. So again, just to kind of piggyback on, basically Love Business on Lock and things that we've talked about, we got to have those conversations, got to be able to have them, figure it out, take the emotions out of it, but be able to have a conversation so that there's no miscommunication, nothing can be misconstrued, and you know directly how somebody is thinking and feeling because they had the conversation. So make sure, which is not necessarily easy, but make sure that you take that approach because it makes things a lot easier in your relationship, in your personal relationship, your business relationship, work, family, etc. All right, it's food for thought. And with that being said, on the behalf of Dr. Cass and myself, the franchise J. Claxton, we thank you so much. And shout out to Mclinn from Peacock's Bel-Air. This shout out to everybody. On behalf of, us over here at Love Business on Lock, we greatly appreciate you taking time out your schedule to kind of, listen to us, chill with us, whatever the case may be, because time is precious. We can't get that back. So hopefully the time that you spent with us we've either entertained you or we informed you. Either way, we thank you so much, and we'll see you again right here on After the Show.